Hello, I am Jaime Elizondo, and this is your Fat Cows, Fat Wallet podcast, where we bring you the information to help you get the best results in your own land. Today's podcast is 5 steps to stop spending on synthetic fertilizers. I am going to tell you how to gradually wean your land from the high cost of synthetic fertilizers without losing your shirt in the process. I will give you some success stories that you may relate to and tell you my own process and success. As you will see, avoiding synthetic fertilizers use is important for the health of your soil, the health of your livestock, and for your profits. You are not only saving money by not using them, but you will also increase your future productivity as you will increase the humus in your soil by using low-cost biological methods instead of chemical methods. Now let me tell you my experience with this. When I bought my first farm, having graduated as an agronomy engineer, I immediately started to apply synthetic fertilizers to achieve a higher productivity faster. But after 2 years, it became clear that the soil was being degraded. So I started reading books and I found André Bazin's book, Grass Productivity, and got my first glimpses of how the soil microorganisms, plants, humus system really function. I learned that they work together in a symbiosis, and this led me to stop the application of synthetic fertilizers, in particular synthetic nitrogen, and to start doing what I had learned as a teenager in my own vegetable garden: low-cost biological methods where livestock are used to improve the soil humus content. And I realized that humus is the true fertility of our soils. Bazin wrote about the 100 years phase our soils will go through when we stop using synthetic fertilizers. In those 100 years, forest production will be diminished and grass will turn pale green or with a yellowish color. And this is due to a deprivation of natural nitrogen, as the synthetic nitrogen previously used was creating higher production by burning or consuming organic matter. I didn't know that, but now I know it. And it's important you know it too. We need to remember that each 1% of organic matter in our soils holds 25,000 gallons of water per acre. That's around a full swimming pool, and releases 40 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year. So that is why everything turned yellow. So back to my own ranch. I suffered from low production and low quality forage for 2 years after stopping the use of synthetic nitrogen cold turkey. Before, my soil healed to where it could function naturally and provide its own fertility with the use of cattle to enhance photosynthesis so that the humus content increased every year. Now, you do not need to suffer what I suffered. I have learned these simple steps in my experience and consulting in many different environments that help maintain productivity and forage quality high when we are weaning our soils of synthetic fertilizers. We need to remember that each 1% of organic matter we can increase is worth the equivalent of $760 in synthetic fertilizers per acre. Is this important for our profits? You bet, as this will improve over time instead of degrading like when we depend on synthetic nitrogen. And in this podcast, we will learn the importance of increasing organic matter in your soils. So why buy synthetic nitrogen when the air that we breathe has around 78% nitrogen? Why use acidified phosphorus and potassium, which is soluble and turns off mycorrhiza? And remember, mycorrhiza makes the roots explore up to 100 times more area. Mycorrhiza, which will make those and many other unavailable elements in your soil available if allowed to live and thrive. In this podcast, I will show you the 5 steps to eliminate synthetic fertilizer from your farm without the negative effects that will come if you stop using them at once. Let me explain something first. We know that photosynthesis creates energy in the green leaves and that stems consume energy by respiring. The difference between the energy created and the energy consumed is the energy that is left for production and to feed the soil life, which in turn will make the unavailable nutrients in your soil available to your plants. This is a form of symbiosis where plants feed through root exudates to microorganisms in the soil so that they thrive and in turn make the nutrients available to the plants, a virtuous cycle. I love this. So here are my 5 steps to stop spending on synthetic fertilizers in your farm. Step number 1, reduce synthetic fertilizers gradually. We know that synthetic fertilizers lower the ability of your soil microorganisms to work efficiently and many times shuts them down. So the first year, reduce your synthetic fertilizers by half. The second year, halves that again to 1/4. And the third year, if everything goes well and total grazing is done correctly, you can decide to pull the plug or wait another year. Step number 2, start total grazing from the very beginning. This is of the utmost importance as the hoops effect of the high animal densities required to achieve a high harvest efficiency not only yields more cow days per acre or hectare, but also helps the gas interchange in our soils to happen to where growth and color of your forages will look like if synthetic fertilizer was applied. Here, I would like to mention that my total grazing students are having success doing this in many different environments. Step number 3, as we know, chemicals in the dung and urine of our animals can stay for a long time in our soils, killing and reducing the population of beneficial insects like dung beetles and earthworms, which are essential for higher productivity. You can also monitor your spider webs to know if the insect population in your farm is free of insecticides, as the insects, which are the food for the spiders, will be killed if they eat insecticide-laden insects. Then you will have very little spider webs. But when you have an abundance of spider webs, you know you're in the right track. So gradually reduce the use of insecticides, fungicides in your fields and in your cattle. Gradually reduce the use of the wormers until your herd is totally weaned of them. Do not blanket treat all your cattle. Treat only those animals that need it. Why? Because we need to remember that the immune system in your cattle requires a constant challenge of parasites, low dose, to be effective. If we kill all the parasites, the immune system shuts down, and any challenge of new parasites will create havoc in their health. We want to create parasite-resistant livestock and not poison-resistant parasites. Many times, step number 4, stop using herbicide from the start. Mow instead when needed. Be creative. Herbicides reduce or harm soil life, and we want more soil life, not less. We want soil life to make the nutrients already in your soil available to your plants. So killing soil life is not a clever idea. Spot herbicide treatment where the chemical does not get to the soil may be used in certain circumstances. So many times we have cockleburs, thistles, and other weeds in our pastures, but they are a sign of overgrazing or compacted soils. When we manage for what we want, which is higher humus in your soil, better grass species, soft and friable soil, better desirable species composition, and closer interplant spacings, your problems will start to fade away. Now to step number 5. To increase profitability in total production, start using the correct selection guidelines in your cattle and use adapted genetics bulls. So as your soil improves, your herd also improves to where they are more efficient in converting the extra forage produced while continuing to improve your soil with their hooves and mouths. It is important that while you improve your soil and pastures with correct grazing management, your livestock also is improved by applying selection guidelines that go with nature. Now I will share a success story. In North Central Florida, we started with very degraded sandy soil, and by applying these principles from the start, we were able to increase organic matter from 1% when we started to 3.18% in 6 years. This is not easy to achieve in the subtropics due to the elevated temperatures. And this also allowed stocking rate to be tripled thanks to the much higher grass productivity. And all of this was done without chemical fertilizers by applying total grazing and together with adapted selected genetics and selection. So these are the type of results that you can get by taking synthetic fertilizers off your farm. It is doable and will create more prosperity for you as time passes and your land improves even more with time every year. Okay, so in conclusion, we know that we can wean our soils and pastures from synthetic fertilizers. And we know that it is much better to do it gradually so that we give the soil life a chance to recover from the addiction of synthetic fertilizers and to become healthy again. First year, have your synthetic fertilizer use. Next year, have it again. And the third year, you can stop using them or keep using them at 25% of the original quantity you were using. On the fourth year, I would recommend stopping their use. It is important to start doing total grazing from the start to get the important hoof action, manure, and urine in your soils. But even more important is the action of taking all leaves and stems, leaving your livestock saliva close to the ground of your grasses so that your plants can grow strong and fat roots thanks to the longer rest periods that total grazing gives. We're going to avoid overgrazing, which is regrazing before the grass has recovered from the previous grazing. Then reduce the use of insecticides, fungicides in your soils, and insecticides and dewormers in your cattle, as we want to select for parasites-resistant genetics and not poison-resistant parasites. I recommend stopping the use of herbicides from the start and find alternative methods to control weeds and shrubs. And while you're changing your land by the appropriate grazing, it is important to start selecting your bulls differently so that as your soil improves, your herd also improves and becomes more efficient. We need to remember that just as the plant feeds the microorganisms in the soil, so that they in turn feed the plant, adapted cattle will create better soil, more in leafy forage by applying the total grazing program. So that's it. Goodbye, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast in Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. You can also join us on the weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. This is www.rwranching.com/join. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.